David Cobb is a lawyer, but more importantly, an engaged citizen. He has sued corporate polluters, lobbied elected officials, run for political office himself, and been arrested for nonviolent civil disobedience. He believes we must use all of the tools and tactics available to achieve the systemic change we so desperately need and so richly deserve. In 2002, David Cobb ran for Attorney General of Texas, pledging to use the office to revoke the charters of corporations that routinely violate health, safety, worker, and environmental protection laws. In 2004, he was the Green Party candidate for President of the United States. Tonight, he is a national spokesperson for Move to Amend. Please welcome David Cobb.
See, I joke to some of my sisters and brothers who are also lawyers, I used to work for a living, so I know what that means. And it's also a real privilege, and I mean that sincerely, to actually be in a hall of organized labor. And specifically the laborers union, because what I know is that organized labor and that movement is actually putting the movement back in the labor movement. Right? Because here's the thing, unions are all fine and good, but if it's not organized labor as part of a movement, it misses the point. Right? Because the reality is that organized labor actually came together in order to fight and struggle for justice for workers, not just members of the union. Right? That's what actually organized labor actually began. And this is a hall where they know that history. They know that legacy. They fight that history. They fight that legacy. Enrique, hermano, gracias por esta casa, okay? So, my job in a very short period of time is to frame out why Move to Amend. And in order to do that, I'm going to take this opportunity to ask, okay, let's see. What we're going to do is talk about the fact that we are up for a constitutional amendment, right? So in very short order, I'm going to explain how our U.S. Constitution is supposed to operate and why the Build Democracy campaign is absolutely critical. When you read how many of y'all read the U.S. Constitution? Be honest. All right, a lot of hands go up. Folks, when you read that document, you're going to see two actors at play, two concepts. The first actor, the first concept is the most important. In fact, it's so important, it's the first three words. We the people. Folks, those are hallowed words in this country, and they should be. See, we the people come together to create the second actor, which is government itself. Saying it this way, I hope it's clear that we the people create government. Government is actually dependent upon us. In fact, I like how some of my friends have said, the people should never be afraid of the government. Actually, they say government should be afraid. How many of y'all believe that the government is afraid of we the people? Think about it. Yeah, a couple of hands go up. It's a slow burn question, because if you don't think that the government is afraid of the people, I got one word for you. Occupy. Think about it. I had the privilege of going across this country during the height of the Occupy encampment era. Probably talked to 40, 50 Occupy encampments. And everywhere I went, you know what I saw? Ordinary people talking to each other. Oh my God. Now, I want to be clear. See, the wealthy, the ruling elite, they don't mind if we talk to each other as long as we talk about sports or celebrity or American Idol, Kim Kardashian, that sort of thing. But as soon as we start saying, why does 1% control 99%, they get upset. Right? They get scared. And honestly, I wish I could have a conversation with the member of the ruling elite. You know what I would tell them? I'm straight up. I would say, don't be scared. We're a peaceful, loving people. We're a peaceful, loving movement. And I know that you're so freaked out right now that you're scared because you're addicted to that crack pipe of power right now and you can't even see straight, right? But you know what? Your grandchildren are going to be grateful we staged an intervention on your addicted ass. Right? Because they're crazy. They are fun. full on crazy on that power, right? So I'm here to tell you, we the people got a lot more power than we know. And I believe that it's important for us to recognize the most painful but frequent way we give up our power is by not recognizing that we have it. But friends, we do have the power. And the next concept in this is that we the people are understood to be free and sovereign. And the word sovereign just means the authority to rule. See, the king isn't sovereign in our framework. We kicked his butt out. Amen. But government isn't sovereign either. Government is subordinate and accountable. Government is subordinate to whom? The people. Government is accountable to whom? The people. That's got a ring to it, doesn't it? I like how this is going. Let's continue. We the people are free and sovereign because we the people have rights. Government does not have rights. Government only has duties. Friends, I'm going to stop for a moment as a lawyer and underscore something. The difference between rights and duties is profound. If I have the right to do something, it means I can do it. I don't need anybody's permission. With all due respect, I don't need this group's permission. I don't need the city council's permission. I don't need the state legislature's permission. You see, if you have the right to do something, it means you can do it. The Constitution actually doesn't create these rights. The Constitution recognizes these rights. These rights are understood to be inherent. They are inalienable. It means that you have them simply because, and here's a little visual for you. Don't get excited. This is just going to be one button. For those of you in the back who can't see it, I'm pointing at my belly button. If you're too shy to check in this public place, please go home tonight. Make sure you've got one. Because if you do, you also have human rights. And may I point out that such human rights have nothing to do with artificial lines on a map, do they? Follow me? These are human rights. Human beings have inherent and alienable rights, and our Constitution acknowledges and recognizes that. Government never has rights over the people. Government has duties to the people, and duties legally are responsibilities. And where do those responsibilities come from? Well, remember, all power resides with the people, right? This is an inherent idea. In fact, the notion that no government is even legitimate if it does not have the consent of the governed resides upon that idea that we have the power. Well, that leads me to this question. What is the population, more or less, of Santa Clara County? 1.8 million people. So I will celebrate that in the county of Santa Clara, the 1.8 million people who live here actually hold all the political power. But I'll tell you this, friends, I don't want to go to a meeting of 1.8 million people where we decide public policy for the county. And I like political meetings. I ain't going to that one. See, we the people hold all the power, but we wisely delegate a certain amount of our power to government. Do we delegate all our power to government? No. We only delegate enough power for government to perform the duties that we the people have told them to do. See, friends, that is what limited government even means. Government is limited in its power to perform the duties that we, the people, have told them to perform. And how does government perform those duties? They write laws and public policy. So this is really important. Public policy or laws are a reflection of our elected officials doing the job that we, the people, have told them to do. And the one thing that no public law can ever do, though, is to violate the private rights of the people who live there. We've already talked about that. And now that I've taken just a moment to frame out how our Constitution is supposed to operate, I will now tell you in one sentence how our constitutional framework and our government is supposed to operate. Now, it's a run-on sentence to be sure, but it's still one sentence. Watch this. In the United States Constitution, we the people are free and sovereign because we hold all the political power. But we wisely delegate a certain amount of our power to government. Government, which we will always hold to be subordinate and accountable to the people. We will charge government with certain duties. They will discharge those duties by writing public policy and public laws. But the one thing that no law can ever do is to violate the private rights of the free and sovereign people who live there. Ta-da! Right? Isn't that great? Isn't this brilliant? We should try that in this country. This would totally work. And I'm not joking, this is brilliant. And I'm not joking, this is beautiful. And friends, I'm not joking, we've never tried it. Because before I go 1 second further waxing poetic about the brilliance of the U.S. Constitution, I got to get a quick time out to ask, in what year is this Constitution either drafted in secret convention, or better yet, can somebody tell me the date, the year that the Constitution is ratified and becomes the supreme law of the land? Nicely done. I heard both dates. 1787 is correctly the date of the Constitutional Convention. 1789 is the date that it is ratified. It's the date that the Constitution becomes the supreme law of the land. The reason I want this date on the board is because now that we understand that legal personhood means the ability to have rights under this document, in 1789, friends, who got to be legal persons? What were their characteristics? Okay, it wasn't all the human beings, so let's be clear about it. You had to be white. I got to tell you, I think white is the most important one right there, because you're cutting out a whole bunch of folk right there. But there's another one that's equally important. Male. If you're a woman, you were literally not a legal person under this document in 1789. And there's another one. Property owner, wealthy. You have to be a rich white man to actually have rights under this document. See, the problem isn't in the framework that I've just described. The whole problem with the founding of this country is who the heck got to be a legal person. You see why personhood matters? Because personhood in this framework means whether or not you are a person with constitutional rights. Saying it that way in 1789, let's just be clear about something. As brilliant and beautiful as this document is, it was used to ratify and legalize the intentional, deliberate genocide of the human beings who already lived here. As beautiful as this document is and what it's supposed to represent, it was used to codify and legalize the enslavement of an entire group of people from Africa who were forced to build this country with slave labor. As beautiful as this document is, it was used to subject and ridicule and mock and suppress women and working class white men. Because most of the white men who lived here in 1789 were either indentured servants themselves or at best second-class citizens. You know what percentage of the adult human beings living in 1789 in this newly formed country could actually claim to be legal persons? What percentage would you think? Just a guess. 12%, 1%. Listen, the 99% mean we are the 99%. That's cool and all, but you know what? 1%? Don't be so cynical. It's not 1%, it's 5%. Literally, which means 95% of the adult human beings living in this country could not claim the protections of this beautiful document. In other words, friends, as Howard Zinn said it, and may the goddess rest his soul, Howard Zinn said, the entire history of this country can be boiled down to an understanding of a series of struggles by actual human beings to be identified and defined as people with rights under this Constitution. Again, do you see how important constitutional rights for people are? In fact, the whole idea of legal personhood has been at the core of every social movement struggle in this country. From the revolution itself, certainly the abolitionist movement, the women's suffrage movement, the trade union movement, the civil rights movement, at the core, the struggle of all of those were really democracy struggles because they were a question of who had the power, and they were questions about personhood. And so now that we frame this out, I want to very quickly ask, well, where should a corporation go? I mean, after all, corporations are the most powerful institutions on planet Earth today, right? So where should a corporation go? And before I put a corporation on our framework, let me ask this honest question. Somebody tell me, in a nutshell, what it takes to form a corporation in California today. Anybody know? I want to point, say it louder. A couple of $100 and an application to the Secretary of State. And isn't it interesting that most of us recognize the incredible power and influence that these corporations have? And a simple question like that, how do you actually create one? Most of us don't know. It's almost as if the ruling elite don't want us to know how our society really works. Think of that. But here's the thing. As long as you fill out your paperwork correctly and your $200 check clears, you know what the Secretary of State will do? They'll rubber stamp that document and issue you a charter. That charter is the birth certificate of that corporation. It takes an action of the government to actually create that charter. You know how long your corporate charter can last in California today? Forever. Longer than any human being will be alive. Do you know what you can do with the corporate charter under California law today? Quote from the California Corporation Code. Today it says anything legally permissible. Apparently, if you have enough money and power, you can do all kinds of illegal things. But I just want to point out that we act today and have been trained to think as if corporations are brought to us from on high, that they're just natural, that they're inevitable, that there's nothing that we can do about it, right? Now I want to take you back to 1789 for a moment and tell you what it once took to form a corporate charter in every one of the original 13 states, and this was true for the next 100 years. Y'all ready? First, your application did not go to some trivial clerk. Your application went directly to the State House of Representatives, where they discussed it, debated it, and voted on it, and you had to get a majority vote of those members of the State Assembly. But that's not enough. After you got that majority vote, it now goes to the State Senate, where they discuss it, debate it, and vote on it, and you got to get another majority vote. But that's still not enough, because after you got a majority vote in the State House and the State Senate, it now goes to the governor, who considers it and has to be willing to sign your application. Does that sound anything like a corporate charter today? Of course not. What did I just describe, actually? A law. Friends, I want you to think about it for a moment. The privilege, not a right, the privilege of limited liability was once so politically controlled that it was the same degree of difficulty to get a state law passed. Oh, and get this. If you were granted the privilege, not the right, but the privilege of limited liability incorporation, do you know how long your corporate charter would typically last? 5 years, 10 years. Every single corporate charter, and I mean every single one, was limited in time. And at the end of that time period, I mean, the business could continue, but the privilege of limited liability evaporated, and you had to go back and go through that process all over again. Oh, and check this out. If you were granted the privilege of limited liability incorporation, all you could do was the specific narrow thing that you had applied to do. And if you did any other type of business, you know what happened to your corporate charter? Revoked. Corporate charters were routinely revoked for going ultra vires. In Latin, that means beyond the authority. In other words, the corporation didn't have the power to go on forever. It was understood to be authorized by our elected representatives. Oh, and get this. Even if you were operating in that narrow time period, even if you were doing the specific thing for which your corporate charter had been granted, if you ever did anything to violate the public trust, do you know what happened to your corporate charter? Revoked. Corporate charters were once routinely revoked for merely acting outside the public interest. Which brings me to this pop quiz question. Somebody name a single one of the Fortune 500 corporations that could even exist today with those restrictions. I'll wait. None. Friends, I want you to think about this. If we had the same political restrictions that once existed for 100 years in this country, you know, for those people who seem so concerned about the founders' original intent, if we had the same rules that the founders intended for these corporations, not a single one of the Fortune 500 corporations would even be allowed to exist. Now, clearly, tens of thousands of businesses could continue, right? But the huge transnational corporation could not even operate the way that they operate now. Friends, I'm not saying that 1789 was the land of milk and honey. We've already covered this, but I want to be clear. Slavery existed. The patriarchy against women was real. The exploitation and oppression of working class white men workers was real. But I'll tell you what was also real was the political control over the corporate instrument. A corporation is just a tool. That's all it is. And I am not anti-corporation. I'm not. I mean, I'm also not pro-corporation. That doesn't make any sense. That's like saying, are you pro-hammer or anti-hammer? Right? And I'm going to use this gentleman can I use you as an example, sir? What's your first name?
Phil.
Phil. Let's say that Phil is a houseless person, and sadly, he does not have a home to live in. But luckily for Phil, standing before him is a skilled carpenter, tool in hand. It's a hammer, and I'm building a house. Phil is going to live in that house. Is that hammer good or bad? Well, it's good, right? Here I am working away. Phil's going to have a place to live. Now, Phil, standing before you, same fella, hammer in hand, only now my intention is to bash your skull. Is this hammer good or bad? It's a trick question. It's neither. The hammer is neither good or bad. The hammer is a tool. The question is, to what do we put the tool, right? To what use? I want us to recognize this. Move to an end, and this Build Democracy campaign is not anti-corporation. We're not pro-corporation. We're pro-democracy. We believe that we, the people, have the authority and the right to decide how to create our society, both politically and economically. We need economic democracy. We need political democracy. It is our birthright. And now that we have gone through this, and we know that it takes an action of state government to create the corporate charter. We understand that the corporate charter can be used to hold the corporation subordinate and accountable. We understand that the corporate charter describes the duties of what a corporation can or cannot do, and we understand a corporate charter should only be issued and only be allowed to exist if it serves the public interest. Isn't it just obvious that a corporation should go here so that it can be properly politically controlled? After all, it is created through the state process. And now, my friends, I thank you for your patience, because here comes the punchline. When the U.S. Supreme Court comes waltzing in, and in an act of supreme judicial activism, by the way, says, oh yes, a corporation, notwithstanding history, logic, or anything else, 5 of us are going to tell 300 million Americans from now on, you have to treat a corporation not as if it's an instrument under our democratic control, but actually it's a person with rights. That perverts the whole framework. See, corporate personhood is a shorthand for the concept that a corporation is to be treated as if it's a person with constitutional rights under our laws. And friends, that is not just an illogical idea, which it is. That's not just a stupid idea, which it is. This concept, created out of whole cloth by judges, steals our sacred right to self-government and self-determination. And as a lawyer, what really just chaps my hide to no end, they're using the legal system to legalize the theft of our right to democracy. And I'm here to tell you it's time for us to do what sisters and brothers across the world have done, what is happening right now, and by the way, mostly in the global south, because if you want to know how to really move a global justice or a democracy movement, look to the global south. They are so far ahead of us. Right? If we actually want to create the democracy that we thought we had, we're going to have to say, ya basta. Enough already. This is crazy talk. It's crazy to say that a corporation is a person. It's equally crazy to go along with the equally illegitimate, also stupid idea that money equals political speech. Money is not speech, it's property. If money is political speech, what that means is that only the wealthy can speak, and those with the most money get to speak louder and more often, right? Do you know that before the 1970s, it was actually a felony in most states to use corporate money to even influence an election? Not even the direct contributions. See how low we've sunk? Most of us were alive when that was the law. All I'm getting at is this. We have got to take ourselves seriously. We've got to recognize that we have far more power than we believe. And we've got to start thinking and acting like the abolitionists did, like the women's suffrage movement did, like the trade union movement did, like the civil rights movement did. Yes, absolutely we're going to engage this campaign. And as Richard Hobbs so eloquently and astutely pointed out, the brilliance of this campaign is that it works on multiple levels. And the first level is it gives us the opportunity to talk about what kind of society we want to live in. Right? It is at its core an opportunity to ask first principle kinds of questions. right? So I am standing here before you as somebody who is traveling around the country. And I was going to actually write it up, but I'm just going to run through very quickly, and then we'll open it up for discussion. But I want to share something with you. Move to Amend did not even exist before 2010. Today, we have 320,000 active participants, and that number goes up every day. Yeah. Think about that. Move to Amend did not even exist before 2010. Today, we have over 160 local affiliates like the one here in Santa Clara County. Yeah, right? Yeah. Now, I only wish that all 165 of them were rocking and kicking the way y'all do, but you're giving us something to strive for. And we have already helped 500 communities pass city council or county resolutions in support of Move to Amend. And this resolution, or this initiative campaign that you're doing, check it out. As great as you are, you're not the first ones to do it. It's been on the ballot 30 times across this country. Guess what? Guess how many we've won going up 30 times? 30. We haven't lost one. Don't screw it up for us. And I also want to tell you this, friends. We've been on the ballot in Mendocino County with Margaret Koster, who's a Mendocino County Move to Amend organizer. We won by almost 80% of the vote. We've won up and down California, right? We've won in Madison, Wisconsin, in Boston, Massachusetts. We've won all across the country. And we won in rural Ohio in the same election where they were voting overwhelmingly for Mitt Romney. Move to Amend was on the ballot. We won there too. What? We've won in rural Wisconsin. And I'm talking about, again, in the heart of, can you guess, from Congress? Paul Ryan's district. We were on the ballot. We won! In the state of Montana, we were on the ballot in a statewide ballot. Anybody going to make the argument that Montana is a bastion of progressives and liberals? We won in the state of Montana. Here's the point, friends. Move to Amend's language, our framing, our messaging is a way that has found a way to cut across labels, to cut across political party identification, and to say, this is a question of who rules this country. Is it going to be collectively we, the people, going through a process, or is it going to be the wealthy and powerful using their money and their corporations to tell us who's in charge here? At the end of the day, this movement is getting larger, stronger, more powerful every day. I'm honored to be a part of it. I'm honored to be here at the Kickoff campaign for Build Democracy. Peace. All right, thank you. So I see a hand go up, and we're going to do that, but I want to make sure we pass these out. All right, if you are ready to get involved, we are passing out now a pledge. Now, we thought that by now we would actually have petitions that we could start signing and getting you to sign up on. They are after their 15-day window, so as a lawyer, Richard and I are already in conversation about what we're to do about that. So I do want to point out to you, and let me pass these around. This is a pledge to support human rights, not corporate rights. And again, you see the framing around human rights around there is so important. What we're looking for, it's really simple. Corporations are not people. Money is not speech. The creation of Democracy Day, but I want to take your attention to the blue. We have pens for you, friends. Please, we're asking you to make an honest to goodness pledge. What are you capable and willing to pledge in support? We need your name, first and last. We need your email. And by the way, as you fill this out, and I hope you all will, print legibly. We need to be in touch with you. Please. Hey, is there anybody who would consider themselves an organizer in this crowd? Right? Is there anything more frustrating than not being able to read a sign-up sheet? So I'm very serious. Please print legibly. We need your address, your employer, and most importantly, we need to know what it is that you're pledging to do. We will be in touch with you. This campaign is growing we haven't lost yet. We're doing it with volunteer energy. We do need a little bit of money. Not much, but we need a little bit. So now I just want to take this moment to speak directly to you who's watching, who's not actually here. See, the reason that you're able to actually see this either on cable access or perhaps on the internet, maybe you're watching on your computer, is because there's an actual human being behind the camera right now. His name is Herb. See, Herb decided not to just hate the corporate media, but to become the people's media. Point I'm making, friends, this movement is growing, not because corporate media is talking about us. They're not. It's because people like Herb are using all the tools and tactics available. So if Herb is really cool right now, it says movetoamend.org right about here. So wherever you are, whatever time you're in, go to movetoamend.org, sign up, and be part of this movement. Peace.